Howdy, Shasta College summer session of 2023. How y'all doing out there? This is week 2 of Humanities 2, our journey through art for 500 years and why it matters, why it mattered then, and why it still matters now. What do you feel about art? Have you ever been in an art gallery? Have you ever been to a museum? Do you like watching movies? And I don't mean Marvel movies. That counts, but I don't mean that. Literature, do you read? Do you read novels? What do you read? Have you ever been to a play? Shakespeare, David Mamet, Sam Shepard plays? Does any of that ring a bell? No? Good. Tennessee Williams. Ashland is 110 miles from here. They got world class theater up there. You should take in a play once in a while. It will change your life. If you don't want your life changed, don't do it. Do you like music? Do you like who listens to classical music out there? Mozart, Beethoven, Stravinsky, anybody? No? Well, we're going to listen to a little of that. Then we're going to listen to some jazz by John Coltrane and Miles Davis. And we're going to listen to some rock and roll. You've heard of the Beatles, Rolling Stones, Jimi Hendrix, Cream, possibly, huh? Black Sabbath. You know, you've heard of Sabbath. Um, the 70s, we saw the abhorrence of disco, but then punk rock blew that out of the water. Thank you, Sex Pistols. Thank you, The Clash. Thank you, Patti Smith. Thank you, Ramones. And then we had the 80s in music. It was a good year. It was when radio was called college radio, and we had bands like Husker Du and REM and the Replacements, and then goth music from Susie and the Banshees and the Cure. They're still out there, folks. Then we go to the 90s with grunge and the Seattle scene with Kurt Cobain and Nirvana and all the rest of the tragic figures that came out of Seattle. These movements are important to our culture. They say they're reflecting back on us who we are. These artists are showing who we are through their art, and started many hundreds of years ago. Here's the book, folks. You should have it by now. That's the cover. Don't make me hold it up again. This is the one. You can buy it on Amazon for 24 bucks. They have it out in the bookstore. They have used copies of this. There's plenty of them. You should have it by now because I'm going to start assigning readings like I did today. So the first thing you should read is this chapter 19. Yeah, I know, but it starts on chapter 17. It doesn't start in chapter 1 because this is volume 2. That's volume 1. We're starting early modern world up into the present. So we're starting essentially in the Renaissance and working our way up to current times. So we're not starting in the beginning. We're starting when it gets really good and the art starts thriving. But one of the things that we have to get through first is our reliance, the Western culture, that is, and that's what we're going to mostly deal with in this class. The Western culture's dominance of the Roman Catholic Church. They dominated everything in our lives. It's one of the reasons why people came to America to flee the tyranny of the Roman Catholic Church. There was a very brave scholar named Martin Luther, not the Martin Luther King you think of, but he is named after him. Martin Luther was a theologian, and he went against the Catholic Church, and they wanted to execute him. That's what they do, folks. They don't like you, they get rid of you. Well, he became so powerful that he came up with a manifesto, and he pounded this manifesto on the doors of the Catholic Church. It was a manifesto. Do you know what that means? That means a cry for freedom from the tyranny and for some sort of ethical, more humanist religion. not so dogmatic. And so this this thing that he did, which started the entire trend towards modern art, artists started to thrive because we drifted away from the Catholic Church to the Protestant Church and the spread of Protestants. And you can look at page 4 and 5. You're going to write your essay on this, so you better look at it. What was he? Who was this Martin Luther? They wanted to try him as a traitor, but he was essentially an unsung hero in the day, not a treasonous person, but a man about personal freedom of thought, religious expression, and not to be punished with a bunch of rules or regulations. And so this helped, literally, it freed up philosophy, painters, musicians, who for one time started to be free. So look at some of these paintings in this chapter 19. Pay attention to some of these. They're awfully wicked. This is long before the internet, folks. These people had to do it old school, hardcore, by hand. You can look at Hermanus Bosch's paintings. It'll blow you away. You've probably seen them, but you don't know what it is. This helps us explain it. If you ever see one in real life, they are mind blowing. They're almost like psychedelic journeys into hell. And during this time, what they call the Protestant Reformation, we had printmakers for the first time. Printing presses made reading for the masses possible. Before this time, everything was hand written out, usually by monks who lived in monasteries. And so only the privileged, the aristocracy, the people who had an education could read or write. Most people couldn't until the printing press became something for the masses. The masses could learn how to read, and that was really important. Now there's an outlet for somebody like a playwright like William Shakespeare. He didn't get popular because of his stage plays and those that saw him. Yes, he did, but people could actually read them for the first time and try to figure out what the hell he's talking about. Macbeth, what does all that interesting stuff mean? So that's all in this 19th chapter here. And there was philosophers, Thomas More's philosophy, utopia. It's a really important areas. These are paintings. There's no photographs in those days. And it's just renderings of hopefully they posed for this, what they really look like. And and then what is considered the first modern novel was ever written during this time, because of the printing press. Don Quixote, maybe you've heard about it. Maybe you've heard the term, maybe not. They made a couple great movies about it. Um, Essentially, it's about this kind of old gentleman who's got dementia, and he has this noble cause of going out and fighting evil dragons and evil monsters in the hope of slaying evil so good would prevail. Well, he was deranged, but kind of comical on a sickly horse, and Don Quixote, and he had his side companion was Ponzo Sanchez, and they rode the countryside looking for dragons to slay and damsels to rescue. And he would mistake windmills. You know what a windmill is, right? Maybe you've seen them. He would mistake those for fire breathing dragons, and he would go and fight them. This was the first acknowledged modern novel in the West, uh, written by Cervantes, and it's stuff of legends. People are still reading this. I had to analyze it in grad school. It's not easy, real worth it. And then On page 2025, we have the Elizabethan era. In England, it means Queen Elizabeth is the queen. William Shakespeare is writing plays as if his life depended on it. Maybe it did. If you know writers, they're a passionate bunch. And then they put on his plays for entertainment, but also they were life lessons in history. In Hamlet, we're going to talk about Hamlet in detail later. We're going to be watching a documentary about Hamlet. Do you know Hamlet? Maybe it's the only play. Maybe you've heard of it. Maybe it scares you because the language is scary because it's written in a poetry called iambic pentameter. Once you get used to it, it's a beautiful thing, deep and meaningful, possibly the greatest playwright in human history was writing in iambic pentameter. Hamlet, to be or not to be? Ah, that is the question. It's what the existential question we all are faced with daily, to be or not to be. Some people think it's a straight up question about suicide. Possibly, possibly not. Or does it mean, are you going to think on your own or go along with the flow and hide your head in the sand? There's a lot to it. We're going to get into it next time, not this time. And then, so look at all that. Try to read some of these these quotes on page 34. Kind of gives us the summation of this chapter. The printing press, the Gutenberg uh, perfects the printing press. Martin Luther posts his 595 theses on the door of the church. That's his manifesto. The German peasants revolt against the fancy people, the bourgeoisie. Then we have Shakespeare in all his grandeur, incredibleness, and you can stop at reading. That's what they call book 3. Please look at book 4 because this week also, because we're going to get into that. This class is 6-7 weeks long. It's fast and furious. We're going to go along at a clip. Your first essay is posted. I posted it this morning. It's on Martin Luther. Critical essay. You got to do some research. I posted a documentary you should watch. You need to watch it. And you need to talk about his life and not just do a copy and paste job from Wikipedia. I want to see your thoughts, your words, your critical analysis. That's what this class is all about. Analyzing these movies, my lectures, the readings. Welcome to the class. See you later. The game is afoot. That's from Sherlock Holmes, by the way. And moral will continue. Story of Humanities is just starting. You're lucky.